I guess this is
Enlighten me.
This is story time for me.
Okay, please go.
I hope I can find the notes here.
Okay.
Because in early 1990s, there was a history professor at Princeton who was able to get a hold of all of his work. His work was held within the family, told never to be released, like the original documentation of his studies. And if you look into the background of Louis Pasteur, he was an elitist. He made a lot of money being connected with the French government and the aristocrat kind of culture at that particular time. And there was two competing theories. There was the terrain theory, which basically is connected into the natural world, that it's the host that matters, the terrain, not the organism. So if somebody's like really sick, nutrient deficient, ill, then what does infect them, right, can kill them. Like there's some level of toxicity.
Sure.
But the truth of the matter is that the bacteria that we see, that we're able to measure, is present in healthy people, and it doesn't kill them. So this got me down the road to, and I don't know if you learned Koch's postulates, the scientific standard of germ therapy, and failed.
Excellently. Well, let's talk about that. So that was not taught in medical school, and only later did I find from one of my GI friends who's very knowledgeable, and I was like, "What's this Koch's postulates?" And it sort of makes common sense, but you explain it how you want to explain it, and I'll see if I understand it the way you do.
This is the scientific method,
yes.
Right? And so, in order for germ theory to be proven,
yes,
it has to meet 4 postulates. The first
yes.
one being the obvious one, association, right? So we're trying to create that this...
There's a disease state, and there's an organism associated with this, which I can isolate.
Exactly.
And then, and I've covered how many of the postulates there?
There's 4 of them.
Okay.
All right.
And then you have to be able to take that isolated organism, transmit it to another animal, get the same disease state.
Yes.
And then I have to be able to re-isolate that organism, and it has to match the first. Have I summed it
It's very good.
correctly? Okay.
Yeah. And what have we found? We found that that's not true. Let's use like listeria in milk, right? This is what led to the pasteurization of raw milk. And one of the things, and I drink raw milk, so I'll identify that right now, and never once been sick. Okay. And the reason why I drink raw milk is because of
how are you even here?
The nutrients, right? But what happened was this is Louis Pasteur's work to prove germ theory, is that a bunch of people got sick from drinking milk. Okay. And when he did his investigation, he identified, I think it was listeria, like a bacteria. And his belief was if you can kill that bacteria, you'll prevent getting sick. It was the bacteria that led to sickness. But the truth of the matter is that healthy people had the same bacteria. And it's the same thing with cholera.
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
Right? Okay. Like you can ingest, into your bloodstream, we can inject cholera, or you can drink infected water and not get sick, while other people got sick. So healthy people could drink the so-called infected water with cholera and not get sick. But we saw that there were places in like cities where people got very, very sick, these isolated areas where people got sick, and then it gets generalized to everybody. But the association isn't there. So postulate 1. So the microorganism must be found in abundance in all organisms suffering from the disease, but should not be found in healthy organisms. So if a microorganism truly causes disease, it should be consistently present in sick organisms and consistently absent in healthy ones. This seems reasonable and straightforward, and that has been abandoned. There's no one study that shows this. And so even with influenza, right, you can shake hands, you can cough, you can spit into a cup, I can drink it. If I'm healthy, I'm not going to get the flu.
Unlikely.
Very, very unlikely. So it really does disconfirm germ theory. So this idea that you will get sick, this doesn't even, this is, let's put.
Maybe I can synthesize this into the way I view what's happened with vaccines, specifically vaccines. So I'm going to say this is a case where success bred excess. So my understanding as a historian, and a physician is that 90% of our longevity increase between the 1800s to now can be traced to clean water,
Yeah.
chlorinating wells,
Yeah.
specifically cholera, and obstetrical care, and not transmitting bacteria in maternity wards.
That, I think there's one other.
Okay.
I think it has to do with nutrition.
Absolutely. And that's a component too. So I'm not going to advocate, I think chlorinating wells and water. Personally, I have a well that's clean enough that I don't need to chlorinate it. That's optimal.
Yeah.
So I would say that is where success, these are clear successes of public health, and nutrition is absolutely a component. I think that's well described in biowarfare, where a population that's well-nourished is very hard to infect, to the point where I think you could argue modern-day pandemics are probably not a thing, in that if you have modern sanitation and antivirals and antibiotics, that it would be really hard for something to truly sweep through a population. It's not going to be the Black Death that we have deep in our subconscious. Asterisk if it's a natural pathogen. And I think that's what's happened with the vaccines, is you had a clear success with smallpox. It's not around, okay?
So that goes back to postulate one,
Which is?
that whether it's smallpox or whether it is polio, there's the assumption that A equaled B. That
Intervention made it less, right?
But that's not true as a historian.
How so?
So there's no evidence that the polio vaccine is what eradicated polio, and there's no evidence that the smallpox vaccine eradicated smallpox. So Dissolving Illusions is a great book to read. Have you read it?
I have not read that one.
And all you have to do, my last guest who was here was an epidemiologist, Ali Krug. And she likes to say a lot of this stuff is middle school math.
Okay.
So there's often curves that occur, that when a population is exposed to some kind of, we'll call it a pathogen or a toxicity, or there's a mass of people that get sick, it tends to go in some type of curve, right? Like it rises, it peaks, and then naturally it goes down as it begins to go through the population. Less people get infected, or their bodies naturally fight that off, right? So when you get that vaccine matters on that curve using math, science. And also you have to ask yourself, for the people who have the pathogen of smallpox or infected with the particular virus or pathogen, and they don't get sick, they don't have any symptoms, why is that the case, right? You have to understand those things from a scientific method perspective, because you understand that there are multiple variables. You have to control for variables. So it goes back to like cholera. Why was there cholera in the water, let's say around New York City or major cities, as well as outskirts into suburban areas or rural areas, but it's only people in pocketed areas in the cities that got sick?